discuss just real quick the road to the White House. And for starters, you get to the White House. Step one would be caucuses and primaries. Those happen between January and June. Then we have the nominating conventions, and the last ones were for the Democratic convention. That was the 25th of July, and the Republican one was on the 18th of July of this past year. Step three, we have the general election in November, and then step four is the Electoral College vote in December. Primary versus caucus. Primary, the advantages are more democratic and less elitist. Disadvantage is that they're expensive and we have low voter turnout. Caucus, an advantage is the faithful vote. It's cheaper and somewhat democratic. Disadvantages is most voters are excluded and it's elitist. If you're a Republican, after hearing some speeches and maybe talking with a few politicos, you cast a secret ballot in a private voting booth, just as you would during a regular primary or general election. That's it for a Republican Party caucus. However, if you're a Democrat, the voting process at a Democratic Party caucus is a little more physical and time consuming, but also a little more exciting. Here's how it breaks down. The total number of voters at the caucus are counted. Voters gather in a large room to talk amongst themselves and convince one another their candidate is bigger, stronger, and way cooler. Voters are then asked to vote by swarming into groups for each candidate. They may also stand aside in an undecided group at first. The number of people in each group is then counted off. Any candidate that doesn't have at least 15% of the total head count is removed. Then the realignment begins. Voters who are in a removed candidates group or part of the undecided pool must then choose a new candidate to side with. While they decide, voters are allowed to talk to each other, shout over, and try to convince the newly unaligned why their candidate is bigger, stronger, and way cooler. Once those voters huddle up with their new groups, everyone is counted off again, and candidates with less than 15% of the total head count are removed. And this process happens again and again until we have the nominee. Open primary advantage is that every registered voter can vote. Most democratic method, and you don't have to declare a party. Disadvantages is that a party loses control over the nominee and could result in foul play. Closed primary. Advantages. Only loyal members choose the nominee and prevents the opposing party influence. Disadvantages is that independents are shut out and it eliminates genuine crossover. You must declare a party. In a blanket primary, voters may pick one candidate for each office without regard to party lines. For instance, a voter might select a Democratic candidate for governor and a Republican candidate for senator. In a traditional blanket primary, the candidates with the highest number of votes for each office in each party advance to the general election as the respective party's nominee. Blanket primaries differ from open primaries. In open primaries, voters may pick candidates regardless of their own party registration, but may only choose among candidates from a single party of the voter's choice. A blanket primary gives registered voters maximum choice in selecting candidates. Nominating conventions. Choosing the number of delegates per state. There are formulas with this. Population and loyalty, electoral votes and state allegiance. Different for each party. We have bonus delegates. Choosing delegates, new rules for Democrats, work to increase women and minorities and decrease party leader influence. What are superdelegates? They are 14% that don't have to pledge the winner of the primary or caucus. Bonus delegates are hitting marks that defer you as a non-swing state. The Electoral College is winner take all except with Maine and Nebraska. It is the plurality system. There is no incentive for second place. It's first or none. Reapportionment every 10 years. Florida gained the most in 2000. Why do we have a two-party system? Most democracies are multi-party systems. What happened in 2000? Gore won the popular vote by 0.5%. There was a swing state dilemma. Florida, we had a Supreme Court ruling. There were 537 votes in Florida. There were illegal roadblocks. There were unclear ballots, including Buchanan, and Nader did win 3%. Of course, the election also in 2016, where Donald Trump won the Electoral College and Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Inauguration Day is January 20th. Amendment 20 is the Lame Duck Amendment. The 20th Amendment shortened the period of time lame duck members of Congress could stay in office after an election had been held, from 13 months to 2 months, November to January, when the new Congress is sworn in.